Mental Health Monday on Radio City Talk with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.
Welcome to Mental Health Extra from Radio City Talk. My name's Mick Coyle, Mental Health Extra, following on from Mental Health Monday on a Tuesday, of course, because we've got so much to squeeze into our Mental Health Mondays. We've expanded it over another day. Thank you to everybody who's been in contact with the show in the last week or so. I was away last week, but last week's podcast still available to download. If you've emailed over the course of the week in regards to a mental health story or a comment, I'm doing my best to get through all of those emails, and we'll do so as best I can over the next few days. If you want to send it again, feel free to do so. mick@radiocity.co.uk. Coming up on the programme today, we're going to be hearing about Luciana Berger getting a new job alongside her current role as the Wavertree MP for Liverpool. We're also going to be hearing about how the police are dealing with cases and are often called out to cases which are flagged under the mental health banner, and we'll talk about the work that they're doing in regard to that and the pressures that are being placed upon the police in regard to that line of work as well. Various different statements from various different people on that particular issue too, but making that point absolutely that there is so much important work needs to be done in regard to mental health that has impacts right across society. Often it's the police who end up being the front line because situations escalate. We'll look at all those issues as well here on the home of Rock, Sport and Talk. We've got a football-related story, though, that's going to kick us off.
Mental Health Monday on Radio City Talk with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.
All right, so it's Radio City Talk. We've got a guest in the studio now, Carl Thomas. Carl is one of the people behind a really great night which is coming up ahead of the Merseyside derby, which will actually feature the Everton Director of Football, Marcel Brand's first personal appearance. I think we can say that, Carl. Yeah. It's for a really good cause as well. For people who've been following the work of Everton in the community and their People's Place campaign, you'll know that they're doing lots of fundraising at the moment. And, well, Carl's going to tell us all about it. Carl, thanks for your time. Great to see you. This is going to be in a venue you know very well. Just explain what the venue is.
So the venue is one me and my business partner started in May. It's called Marine Street Social. It was basically a multi-purpose space which was there for food, for drink, for music, for art, for production. Just wanted something a little bit more fuller than your usual kind of bog standard pub or club. And it was something that we'd kind of been looking at for a year or so that had been missing, following the lad's great lead in the Baltic market and kind of expanding on it. So, you know, we kind of wanted to do stuff from what would work on a local level, but also then bring people from outside the area, which would never normally come to the world. You know, for some from live events, electronic, whatever we could really think of.
And you're doing a charity event, and This is for a really good cause as well, the People's Place, which is going to be essentially Everton's desire and aim to create this new hub, mental health facility, very much within the shadows of Goodison Park as well, and there's lots of fundraising required for that one as well. Your twist on this is that you're going to get the Director of Football in, so, you know, people might have questions to ask. I'm sure that they do, but this is a guy we don't really know that much about at the moment, right?
No, yeah, he's a superb character. He's one of the top, probably one of the most respected people in the game. He was at PSV Eindhoven for a long time, and this is where really I came into contact with him. My day job, so to speak, I work in football. I'm an agent for a large organisation called SEG. We looked after a lot of players. Memphis Depay, etc., was one of his players over in Holland. And the boys over at Everton Wallasey Supporters Club asked me could I assist them. I always get a bit of a nervous kind of request when it comes in. And then they told me what angle they were looking to go in on, which was this new People's Place. And it was personal to me. I thought it was a fantastic idea. I followed Everton the community from afar, and I think the job that Karina does, second to none. She's fantastic, as well as other people. And we just thought, well, it'd be a great chance for the people to get a good kind of viewpoints from what Marcel is about, his philosophies on the game, how he was so successful at PSV, and what his long-term, medium plan and short-term plans are at Everton. So we thought it was a great chance for him to speak to the fans, as well as raising some money for a pretty good charity as well.
Yeah, and I like this this sort of, it's not a trick as such, but it is to a certain extent, where you can actually get people into a room and kind of say, you know what, this is about talking about mental health. It's not quite that, but it's for that cause as well. I think that's all part of the destigmatisation of it.
100%. I mean, I think getting people in there and listening to Marcel, but we've also asked Everton the community for some videos of what the work they're doing. So, you know, subconsciously getting into everybody's heads really about what they're doing. But I mean, look, Everton community have been doing some fantastic work. I think they're recognised, not just nationally now, internationally, for the work that they're doing. And obviously a lot of people, I mean, everyone now would be lying if they said they didn't have someone they knew or were associated with that's got some sort of problem. I mean, and I think it's really important that it's brought to the forefront of everyone's minds that, yeah, football is everyone's interested in, especially the game 2 days later. But also, you know, this could be somewhere that could support someone's mum, someone's dad, someone's brother. So I'm really pleased that Marcel has given up his time and basically offered us to be his first point of call for to speak to the fans. You
must obviously, as an agent, I mean, you're the baddies, aren't you, in football at the moment? You know, if anyone ever talks about anything from a footballing point of view, it's all the agents' fault. Yeah, but you're trying to give something back, aren't you?
Wriggling here. No, listen, there's good and bad in every game. I mean, the job we do, I'm very lucky to have worked for the same company. They taught me and trained me from nothing, and I can say that the job we do with the players, you know, I'm emotionally involved with my lads, and there's actually one of my clients who wants to speak. We're just waiting for clearance from the club, and Lewis Gibson, and his older brother was seriously ill last year. He had an illness, and there was touch and go whether he'd survive, and that was during his transfer to Everton. And what people don't see is that the players also have a lot of kind of care about this sort of situation. I mean, I think Aaron Lennon spoke out about it quite well last year, and the pressures that are on players nowadays. So my job as an agent is as well, okay, look, it's to talk about the financial and the business side of things, but it's also to look about their welfare and also make sure they've got someone to speak to, be there at the end of the phone when results are going well, be there when they have major injuries, just also offer, and from not just from the players' point of view, it's the family's point of view as well. And I'd like to think from someone like myself, I came from, giving it the crying in here, but I came from a council estate on the Wirral. I was brothers and sisters, was 6 of us. My mum had problems during when she was alive, and I think that's probably my biggest asset, is being able to understand people's problems, and also then I'd like to think I've got the business side of it as well. But also I think it's empathy and dealing with people in the right way. I think you'd be surprised how much we actually do as a job. You know, I understand we're there in the media to be the bad guys, but you know, we're not all like that. Not everyone's out there just purely for the money side.
No, absolutely not. I think we've got Carl Thomas with us in the studio, by the way, organiser of the event. I'll give you the details, but it's coming up on Friday, November the 30th, and it's taking place at Marine Street Social, based on the Wirral, in association with Everton Football Club. Marcel Brands will be there. Snods is going to be there. Graham Stewart's going to be there as well. Yeah. And it's all raising money for Everton and the communities, the People's Place. Tickets are available from Skiddle, skiddle.com. There's a link there. If you go for what we typing in on Skiddle, Marine Street Social or Marcel Brands, one of them will come up.
I think if you put in either of them in the search engine will come up. Any problems, obviously they can contact us on the page as well, on Marine Street Social's Facebook page. I mean, there's someone there to answer all the time,
and we'll get the link up on our social media.
They can just come on the evening as well. Obviously, that's also possible. They can just come. You know, there's you know, we're an open house, so I'm sure they'll be able to find a place for them. £25 ticket includes 2 food courses from the Marine Street Social vendors. They're always sound, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, look, if you look at the kind of idea we did, if you look at the Baltic Markets idea, you have the same sort of concept. There's 5 or 6 different food vendors. You know, the money that we're getting on the £25 percentage has to go towards the food, because these food vendors need to make a living too. But the rest of the money, everything we make, every single penny that we take is going towards them. There'll be some prizes on the night, some free tickets to games, there's some meet and greeting opportunities, there's some memorabilia being made available. I mean, as I said, Everton, the community have fully backed us. We just want to make sure that we can raise some money for them, because, you know, I don't want to be the person at the end saying, well, you're going to put your hand in your pocket now, Carl, of all the deals that you've done, and suddenly be told off for only offering X amount of money, so please come dig deep.
Carl Thomas is with it. It's funny, actually, Marcel Brands was part of the Everton group that took mental health training through the Chasing the Stigma organisation, and at the time, Denise Barrett-Baxendale was involved, the Everton manager, Phil Jagielka, and the club at the time were like, can you come and just, you know, sitting here for 10 minutes, just get the gist of what's going on. And it was only like a 25-minute training scheme. But actually, the manager, the director of football, and the club captain all said, no, I'll make 25 minutes. Yeah. Actually, seeing the value in having that mental health training. Actually, it just goes to show that those people like Sir Phil Jagielka, he's smart enough to know what's going on in the heads of his teammates. And he's probably seen that many times in his career. You know, if you're the team manager and you're thinking, I can't get anything out of this lad, you're best placed to know what's going on from a mental health point of view.
To come from that point of view, you've got to understand that 11 players can only play each week. So they say it's not your squad is not about the players that play; it's about the players that don't play. And having everyone in the environment, we're all pushing in the right direction. You've got some of these players who are on a vast amount of money and well deserved, my point of view. And you have a situation where these guys are away from families. The pressures on them to perform week in, week out. The crowd. The social media nowadays, everybody can be got at. And some of the things that I see on social media, you need to be strong-minded, strong-willed to be able to kind of cope with this. And okay, people can say they earn a lot of money, but at the end of the day, so can Formula One drivers, so can tennis players, so can politicians, and so on. But from my point of view, I think now that sport is actually openly recognising that there is a need for this, it can only be a positive thing. I mean, from my point of view, I do a lot of work with younger players who are coming through the game and trying to build a career. From 16 to 18, they're scholars. From 18 to 23, they're pros. But there's once you've made that first step into professional football, it's then trying to break through to the first team. And a lot of these boys are earning good money for lads of their age, but the pressures that are on them and the stress of finding out if they're going to get a new deal, whether they've got to be able to pay their mortgages. There's a lot of things that people kind of don't fully see out there. And I think now, Everton, the community, raising this profile of what it's okay to talk, it's okay to say that I'm worried. I think it's fantastic. Honestly, I can't fault them at all. You've got people like Jordan Pickford, I believe, who's doing something in the next couple of days. Ray Fit, I think, is something about, his Ray Fit. Yeah. And, the players are fully buying into this. It's a bit of fun, but it's also raising their profile, because who knows where someone's kind of health is going to be next week, next month, next year. So I think it's a great thing all over, and I can see why the club would fully endorse this.
Graham Stewart, Ian Snowden and Marcel Brands, all part of the Marine Street social event coming up Friday the 30th of November, ahead of the Merseyside Derby, organised by many people, including Carl Thomas. You can get tickets for it via skiddle.com. Type in Marine Street Social, type in Marcel Brands, type in Everton in the community. You'll find the right page there. It's probably fair to say, Carl. Thank you for your time. Sounds like it's going to be a great night. And thanks for joining us on the programme.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'll speak to you again soon.
As part one of Mental Health Extra for this week, going to take a look now at a story coming out of the HMIC FRS. That's a bit of a mouthful, but it's Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services. They put out a new report called Policing and Mental Health, Picking Up the Pieces. I've been sent a breakdown of what's in it, making it clear that while the police service is doing a good job in difficult circumstances, there are concerns over whether the police should be involved in responding to mental health problems at their current level. Now, this is a really interesting situation. We've talked many times about how mental health services, if they're not properly funded, can mean that people fall away from these service. And then if situations escalate, who has to deal with it in the end? It turns out to be, according to this report, the police. As part of this report, and I'll get a link to the full thing online, they've gone through some of the details with Zoe Billingham from HM Inspectorate Constabulary saying, police officers naturally want to respond and do their best to support vulnerable people when they ask for help. We find that police officers respond to those with mental health problems with care and compassion, but we cannot expect the police to pick up the pieces of a broken mental health system. Overstretched and all too overwhelmed police officers can't always respond appropriately, and people in mental health crises don't always get the help that they need. I'm going to be hearing from Jane Kennedy, the Merseyside Police and Crime Commissioner, but also the Cheshire Police and Crime Commissioner. First and foremost, though, let's hear from Michael Brown, Chief Inspector Michael Brown, the Mental Health Cop, coordinator of the College of Policing, their mental health coordinator, and he's been setting out the work that police are finding themselves doing because maybe the system is broken and they're finding themselves, quote, picking up the pieces.
Well, the report finds that the police have got a role to play. Not everything that happens in society around mental health is predictable and preventable, and sometimes incidents happen where realistically only the police are going to be able to provide that initial emergency response. So, incidents like people on bridges over railways or motorways or major roads threatening to jump, for example, that's always going to be a police responsibility. If somebody's hurting themselves with an edged weapon, that's also always going to be a police responsibility in a lot of circumstances. So we have got a role to play, and lots of reports over the years have said that. But I think what today's report's trying to say is that's perhaps gone a bit too far. We know from history that police officers are often exposed on their own to incidents where sometimes they don't have legal powers to deal with a situation. For example, police officers under the Mental Health Act have no legal powers at all in private premises where people live, and yet actually operational data shows that that's where the majority of some of our mental health calls take place. So if an officer is called to someone's private home during a mental health crisis incident, they'd have to try and resolve that incident without being able to use mental health law. Sometimes that means people are criminalised by being arrested for other legal reasons. Sometimes it means officers have to resolve the incident without legal remedy. In other words, they do it by persuasion or influence. And what the report seems to be trying to say is that when you put officers in that position, that can often work in the sense of providing a short-term response. But sometimes there are cases where there is no legal basis to intervene in a situation. Officers struggle to call upon support from other relevant services, and they're quite literally in a house responsible for somebody's immediate welfare without any powers whatsoever by which to guarantee that. So that's just one example of where sometimes things go too far and officers are overexposed on their own to situations they can't handle because the law doesn't allow them to.
And when people think about the job that the police service do, often I suppose mental health is not something that springs to mind. Interestingly, there was a survey as part of this report, and just 2% of people surveyed felt it was the police's responsibility to respond to mental health calls. Do you think the public would be surprised if they knew the volume, perhaps, of mental health calls that you and your colleagues deal with?
Yes, they would. In my work, when I present on this topic, I often make the point that in the first 10 arrests that I made in the police service, 6 of them were connected to mental health in some way, shape or form. And that surprised me as a young officer. I hadn't given much thought, frankly, to how much of my work would be related to mental health. I guess I knew that some of it would, and certainly in training mention was made of powers under the Mental Health Act, but that it would be 60% of my first 10 arrests really shocked me. And that's partly what got me interested in this issue within policing. I think the public would be surprised. And I think, some of the points that Sir Tom Windsor is making and Zoe Billingham are making in the report is that sometimes it's the extent of police involvement in some things which is surprising and problematic. So, for example, if police do use their powers under the Mental Health Act to safeguard someone who's at immediate risk, the nationally agreed standards for over a decade have stated that the police should remove somebody usually to a healthcare setting, probably a psychiatric unit, which has an assessment suite, and the police should hand over, do a risk assessment, work with NHS staff, and leave that location again within an hour, except in very exceptional circumstances where there's a serious risk of ongoing violence towards NHS staff, where clearly the police would stay and assist. But in the main, the police would remove somebody to a psychiatric unit, hand the person over to NHS staff after a good risk assessment, and leave again. But in a lot of circumstances around the country, that simply isn't possible because the psychiatric areas are simply not staffed or not staffed adequately to allow the clinical responsibility to come to bear on the situation. And the police end up remaining there for sometimes 9 hours, 10 hours to get an assessment done. And if the person then needs admission to a hospital under the Mental Health Act as an inpatient, the police can remain there again for as long as it takes to identify a bed and then secure the admission. And we know that that can sometimes take days and days. So I think the public would be surprised on some occasions exactly how many hours of resource it takes from the police service to facilitate the psychiatric assessment of somebody who then ends up becoming an inpatient and is admitted to hospital, because it can be dozens and dozens of police hours over several days. And I think they would find that surprising.
That's the mental health cop, Michael Brown, the mental health coordinator at the College of Policing, offering his thoughts on this report, Policing and Mental Health, picking up the pieces. I've got a statement here from the Merseyside Police and Crime Commissioner, Jane Kennedy. It is a sad fact that 20% of all calls to Merseyside Police are now mental health related. This places a massive strain on the organisation. The force work very hard to find ways to continually improve the care they offer to people who are often at their lowest ebb. I was particularly pleased to see the work of Merseyside's mental health triage cars recognised as best practice. The reality is, however, that if other services were sufficiently resourced, officers and staff would not need to be deployed in the way to the extent that they are. I hope ministers will pay close attention to the findings of the report. David Keane is the Cheshire Police and Crime Commissioner. He has said due to large-scale cuts to other public services, police in Cheshire are increasingly the first port of call in supporting those with mental health issues. It goes on to say, while police officers have received training to help them recognise the signs of poor mental health and understand how to offer support to those in need, they are not able to offer the expert advice and support that a mental health professional could provide. What did the government have to say about it? We can tell you. The government spokesperson said the NHS has worked closely with policing partners to reduce the use of police custody as a place of safety by 95% since 2011-2012. That's one aspect of it. We are investing £2 billion in mental health services, including mental health liaison in A&E departments and community crisis services, and NHS England will shortly be setting out its proposals to improve all mental health services in the long plan. Maybe an example there of the work which is going on out there in the community, which maybe we don't hear about, but actually if you do remove services or services aren't available when they might be required, what ends up happening? Well, quite simply, it ends up being that the police end up picking up the pieces, and picking up the pieces is the name of that report. What we'll do, we'll get a link to the report and the various different people on our social media, and we'll put a link into the podcast as well. Going to wrap up by announcing that Luciana Berger, who is the Labour MP for Wavertree, has called for a revolution in mental health, as it was announced that she is one of 3 new vice presidents for the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, the BACP. It champions the counselling professions and the expertise of its 47,000 counsellors and psychotherapist members while working to raise professional and ethical standards. She told the BACP meeting in Birmingham, revolution suggests a complete overthrow of the old order and a new system to replace it. And I choose this word deliberately. We need a whole new approach to mental health, of which counselling and psychotherapy should be a central part. She said that 8 years as MP for Liverpool Wavertree showed that hundreds of people in my constituency had problems with their mental health, and the system supposedly there to help them was creaking at the seams. So she is one of 3 new vice presidents of the BACP, the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy. There's a lot going on this week in the world of mental health. That's why we've got to do Mental Health Extra. If you subscribe to the Mental Health Monday, it comes into your feed for absolutely free, and we wrap it up on a Tuesday. Don't forget, if you want to find mental health services close to where you are, enter your postcode into the Hub of Hope, hubofhope.co.uk. You'll find from there all the local mental health services that operate in your area. It might be something that you can use, or it might be something that you might be able to point in the direction of somebody you know, love, care about. We'll also get the details, by the way, to that Everton event up on our social media too, here from Radio City Talk.